Okay, it is 32 degrees today, so we're going to sit under some strong lights with a powerful computer running to heat the room up, because that's the same thing to do on a Thursday evening.
That would be a British thing to do in the modern age.
Yeah.
But we are going to drink booze, so I mean,
yeah,
that should protect us in somewhat against reality.
Cider.
And the aspects of it that might be overwhelming.
Lemon booze. No, apparently it's not good because it makes all your blood vessels dilate. And then...
Alcohol?
Yeah.
Well, apparently it hydrates you faster than just standard water, but it also dehydrates you faster as well. So I
if
think,
you go for the pee.
Yeah.
Which you should do, because it was you that taught me that holding a wee when you've been drinking isn't good. Because it increases...
I don't know if it was me that mentioned that, but I mean, I wouldn't have really need to be told it, to be honest.
But most people do. They just leave it, don't
they? If something's
they?
painful, it's not good for you.
There's this, don't break the yellow seal, don't pee all night because you'll be peeing all night. But it's like, if you need to pee... I think
that's more a Brettism, to be honest.
Brett taught you that. You taught me that.
Maybe I did. Maybe it was fresh in my mind.
But if your body's telling you need to do something, you should probably do it and not do it. But yeah, so... Theresa May is not our Prime Minister anymore. We've got Boris Johnson. We're not going to go into that though. What I want to go into is Theresa May's done the one thing that I've agreed with, like that since she was in power in her last couple of days of having said power, which was in my was it last year or the year before that they added the sugar levy on?
They've been talking about it for a long time, but I think it was possibly early last year. But I could be wrong because my memory of times is awful.
So in Britain, if you buy drinks with lots of sugar like Coca-Cola, you get charged an extra little bit, and that money goes to the NHS, I believe, just to cover the health problems of having too much sugar, because a lot of people can't have things in moderation.
Because the government thinks that people aren't responsible enough to do things responsibly without being
in my opinion,
forced to do things
they're
responsibly
partially
with their
right.
wallet.
Because a lot of people, if they can drink Coca-Cola all day or drink energy drinks all day, they will drink energy drinks all day.
Yeah, I think it should be people's free choices to do that.
Yeah,
and at the end of the day,
they still have that free choice. They can still do it. They're just going to have to pay for it because it's good. If it costs the NHS money because they give themselves diabetes or whatever.
Well, I mean, one of the more black-pilled ways of looking at things, let's say, would be that it would be good for the evolution of the species that people are let to do silly things, because that would then mean that the people who are surviving to breed and succeed and to pass their mental seed. Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, we're exercising selective breeding on our own species.
Yeah, in a sense. And I mean... I always like to try and find a way to keep people as free as possible. And
they've still got freedom. It's just going to cost them, and they've got to earn.
True.
They've got the freedom to make the choice, but there's a consequence.
The plan is to manipulate people into making the right choice, regardless of for the wrong reasons, maybe. Because it shouldn't be that you don't do things that are bad for you because it's cost effective. It should be because it's a bad idea. So it almost attaches.
It's a bit of both.
Well, it is
because otherwise, the rest of the population, if someone else isn't capable of exercising moderation, why should I have to pay for their health treatment?
Well, that is a fair and reasonable point.
Why should I have my freedom of how I use my funds taken away because they can't exercise? I mean, part of it doesn't affect me because I don't buy sugary drinks. I just don't like sugary drinks. I'll buy ones with the artificial sweeteners because I prefer the taste of them, in all honesty.
I don't like the taste of artificial sweeteners.
That's fair enough.
I'm really sceptical about what they're doing to people as well.
Yeah, they very well could be just as carcinogenic.
There cannot be the sort of evidence that can even decide how they will affect somebody over a long-term period, because they've not been researched for that long.
They have.
And from there, it's you don't even know how they'd affect next generations either. So I mean, there is the possibility that the intake of these things could have an effect that we don't understand, and that's
it might have already had an effect, and there's something that's more common now that wasn't in the past, and that's why we're discovering it more, perhaps.
I think the whole sugar fear, I suppose, sugar phobia, I think is probably the way of putting it, is just that it's irrational, it's overblown, and I mean, obviously having too much sugar and not enough of other things that your body needs is going to be a problem. If you're living on literally cider alone, or let's say
It's soft drinks in fairness, though.
Yeah.
That's where
alcohol is
it's
obviously bad
charged.
for you. It has negative effects. This also has positive effects if it's managed in the right way. And I mean, like I say, I think better off trying to foster a culture of responsibility and taking responsibility rather than just saying let's manipulate things so it pans out that the people who can't control themselves are financially forced to control themselves. And this is the thing, I think if we're saying that I'm not sure if it's anything more than the government makes some extra money on this situation, because I don't think raising the cost of these things is going to stop people buying them.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're not necessarily making money though. They're not pocketing those. That is we'll shove it in our pocket.
Well, it's just going to make those people broker, maybe.
Yeah, it's going back to, as far as I'm aware, the money that is taken from the sugar levy is going into the NHS directly.
Yeah.
So it's going there directly for healthcare.
Yeah, but the thing is, at this point, 4 cans of cider is cheaper than 4 bottles of Coca-Cola of the same size.
Yeah, that's quite true.
So, I mean, there's
an imbalance there, yeah, definitely.
I think.
But if you're buying Coca-Cola bottles at like the little
the
ones,
more they try and balance it, the more it's going to be a balancing act. It's like things balance out by nature anyway. That's what nature kind of does.
With your example there, the problem there is, you can buy a bottle of Coca-Cola that's only 500 millilitres for £1.20, or you can buy a 2 litre bottle for £1.80. So it's also about like, those are there for convenience because they're kept in the fridge and they're kept by the door for people to go and grab for like quick lunches, or because they're travelling and they don't want to carry a big thing.
Yeah, true. But
and
at the same time,
grabbing something for lunch and also travelling are less likely to go and buy alcohol. They're going to go and buy 3
litres of cider in a bottle is going to be like £3.
Yeah, probably.
In those same shops. So if you're going to say,
and it probably works out about the same.
It's a matter of swings and roundabouts anyway. But like I say, I think. Over-regulation of things that are bad for people.
This isn't necessarily regulation though. It's not stopping people buying it.
It's like there is a point to it. I can understand that. It's just I don't like it.
I'd understand
even if it has to exist. I don't like that it has to exist. You know.
I'd understand if the point was you can't buy sugary drinks anymore.
Because I mean, some people like me can seemingly have quite a high sugar diet.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody's an individual. People's metabolisms are different. Like, you know, I mean, if anything, it's like, I suppose maybe the special dispensation given to diabetics or something that actually need to buy more sugary products and sugary drinks. But maybe there's not, and I don't actually know, to be honest.
I'm just going to pause for a second. We need to reposition the microphones. Luckily, it's been picking us up okay so far.
I did wonder about them.
Let's just stop for a sec. This is a high quality job here. See, this is what happens when it's a hot day. You've already had 1 pint of alcoholic beverage, but luckily it's still been picking us up okay so far, so maybe a little bit quiet.
I presumed that everything was fine because Adam hadn't said anything.
I know, just check with me next time.
I could see the volume bars going up and down, so I'm
that's right, we haven't been wasting our time, that's the important thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say charging people a tax isn't the same as taking away freedom. It's a very minor increase. I mean, it's the same as the plastic bag thing, isn't it? As you continue to buy plastic bags.
It's not taking away a freedom. It's trying to massage somebody's freedom or steer their freedom, help them make a decision that they wouldn't have otherwise made with the way that things are engineered, rather than them actually making the conscious choice to do so.
So the other way they could have gone about it, how about if instead they did the same thing they did with cigarettes? So they put Coca-Cola in more obscure places so it's not as easily accessible, made them dumb down the packaging so it's more bland and less
I think
attractive.
it's a slippery slope.
Right, no, I'm asking you which you prefer though. If you had like the choice between the 10p extra per buying a 2 litre bottle or having a dumbed down package that's like less attractive for high sugar drinks, if you had to pick between them.
I mean, I don't see the point of either too much, to be honest.
It's a hypothetical,
but
though.
I mean, I guess having boring packaging would something that I'd personally prefer as a buyer. But I mean, as somebody, you know, I mean, from the perspective of the government, if they're really trying to impact upon people's purchasing decisions or whatever, I don't know. It's hard to say which one would affect people more, but I think it would probably be more effective if they changed the packaging than the prices, because I think people just perceive things as it appears to them, and if it appears less appealing, then it might, you know, that might prompt them to make a better choice. But at the same time, I could see it just normalising things like that, and or making it so, well, if you're buying these products, that makes you, I don't know, some sort of bohemian or something. And yeah, it's tricky, because there's a question of, like, how do you psychologically impact upon people's free choices more? And at that point, I'm like, well, I don't want to have an impact upon their choice. I want to help them be able to make the right choice for themselves.
But there's been plenty of campaigning over the past decade. They feel like there's
forces outside them pushing them that way, but maybe it's all about those forces anyway. So
yeah, like, there's been plenty of campaigning over the past, 10 years to try and educate people, like, don't drink as many sugary drinks, they're really fucking bad for you.
Here's the thing, there's not been any campaign saying, hey, here's this thing called taking responsibility, and here's this also...
I mean, I think that plays into part of it.
I think it's... Well, is it?
I've seen all the things on, like... I mean, I don't have television anymore, but when I have, there's been, like... I can't remember what it is, but it's like little claymation figures talking about, like, the things that are bad for you.
I think
that is trying to teach, like, responsibility as well.
Yeah, but that's a direct thing. That's like I think what I'm saying is you need an underlying ability that's detached from anything to do with sugar and fat or whatever. It's about just the literal idea of
human beings are really shit at that, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You don't see a lot of people, like, because it can be learned. Discipline can be learned. They teach it in the army. So it's like, but at the same time, it's like, people in the army, I'm not sure if none of them are eating
that?
Yeah, no,
what's a bigger evil, subjecting everyone to that kind of enforcement of discipline, or just trying to say you can keep doing what you want, but it's okay, you're going to pay extra for it, because if it's an irresponsible behaviour that could affect you, we want to make sure you're funding your own way to pay for your own healthcare at the end of the day. Yeah,
it's true. I mean, it's an issue that's relative to a whole bunch of other issues, so we could always say that, if this was different, then that would be different as well.
I mean, it might be. I mean, I think even if I drank high sugar drinks, because part of it is, as I said, it doesn't affect me because of my preferences. But if I did drink high sugar drinks like Coca-Cola, I'd probably still pay the extra, because unfortunately I try and take. I'm one of the people where if I haven't bought the bag, I'll pay extra for the 5p bag and keep using the plastic bag, because whilst it's maybe a minor inconvenience, it doesn't affect me that much. So if I was a Coca-Cola drinker, I probably would just pay the extra for the Coca-Cola and keep doing it. I think that's kind of fine. But then for the people who aren't as well off and struggle more financially, maybe that's less fine. But I mean, if you're struggling financially, you probably shouldn't be spending as much of your budget on luxury consumables.
Well, you say that, but that's the thing. If they're high in calories, they need to buy less of those things to get the calories they need in a day.
But you want them to get calories from nutritional food, not from food that gives no nutritional value.
I mean, a lot of it is, it's kind of semi-fear-mongered off of being healthy for you. I mean, there's a thing. There's fruit juices that are higher in sugar.
Quite right. But those fruit juices are giving you more nutrition.
This is true,
because they're fortified. Well, not fortified, but
if you're having these things as a part of a balanced diet, and you're getting exercise, and you're not having too much food in general, then everything should be fine.
But the most overweight and unhealthy people in our nation are also the poorest.
But isn't it making, therefore, the people who are responsible pay anyway for the people who aren't? Because that means that when I'm not probably the most responsible example, but there's, say, when Mr. Work out at the gym all week, works his 9 to 5 job really hard, like gets about, and he wants you basically, like, when you want a drink, you're now paying more for that drink.
Hang on, go through the example again. I don't get the point that's being made.
Right. So basically, by raising the price of these drinks, you're making the irresponsible people pay extra and the responsible people pay extra.
I mean, yeah, okay, I get your point there.
So it means that you're having to pay extra anyway.
But the responsible people are going to be paying extra less times because they're being responsible with it.
True. But
the
you
people
could
who are
probably
being
get
irresponsible
away,
are going to stack up that extra 5 or 10p per litre, whatever it is, many more times.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, okay, in a sense it's kind of a punishment. Should we be punishing the general population?
If anything,
probably not.
It seems like a way of the government making extra money out of people's health and
you say making money, but it's not going in their pockets. It's going back out in the way that they're having to like use that fund to pay for treatments that people may be inflicting on themselves.
They want to make money. That's a good thing, but it's in essence that they'll be taking more in taxes off of both the responsible and the irresponsible people.
But probably less off the responsible people, so the responsible people are being penalised less because they're responsible, because they're not having as much.
I think it could be a stealth tax in a way. It's not, I mean, it's not a stealth tax in the sense that it's not a tax. It's more like a tax that is a stealth tax that's basically applied to.
I mean, they're calling it sin taxes.
Yeah.
And it is saying
because there's already a word that's sin tax, and that could get really, really difficult and confusing.
But so sin tax is in SIN space taxes rather than calculus. But it's also sort of putting that judgment on it when you give it that name and the connotations that go with it. And I guess this goes in the theme that we've discussed many times. Also, again, death of God, and but we're still looking at people as sinners
and or death of meaning or whatever. But largely death of God is probably one.
But the big thing, the recent news about, because obviously this has been in place for over a year now. Theresa May said, perfect, and I said that they're including milkshakes in this. It's like, that's fair enough. It's again a high calorie, high sugar drink.
Probably, I don't know. Maybe she didn't like the idea of people throwing milkshakes at people without the government taking a tax on the milkshake throwing. Yeah.
I'm cynical about that.
Yeah, I mean,
or sceptical.
Yeah,
but it's funny that they've put milkshakes back into the news for a different reason. I got a little bit of a poetic giggle out of that. Once again, milkshakes are there in political news for more innocent purposes this time. But that was a big thing. So I think the biggest point out of it was that in
other shares,
milkshake 3 years that Theresa May was in power. Is it really that long?
Roughly,
about 3 years.
I'm bad with knowing times and stuff.
That's the first thing that I know that she's done that I've agreed with her doing. Yeah. And it's also the last thing that she's done. So there's sort of a I guess it's a bit of an irony in that. That gave me a laugh. I think if you're gonna,
she seemed genuinely sad about failing when she gave her I'm resigning speech. I think that's one of the few things I've seen her do that are it's you tried but you failed. At the end of the day, it doesn't seem that she was so miserable as a PM because she was a bad person or she was.
I wouldn't say she was a bad person.
But she had the wrong intention so much or something. It's more that she's just really not very good at what she was doing.
Yeah,
she's just one of great.
You say she's wrong, you don't think she had wrong intention. The one thing that rubbed me the wrong way is.
I mean, I thought she meant well, even though she's not actually doing the right things or seems to have the intent of doing the right things.
Let me cut you off there.
She thinks okay, go on.
Do you know why? This is what I've been told, and apparently this is what she said in an interview. Do you know why she took the job as a PM?
No.
She did not because she wanted to deliver Brexit. She took the job because she wanted to be PM. Just down to, I want to be PM so I can say I've been Prime Minister. And apparently
most PMs.
That was on the grounds of, originally, a long time ago, as a child, in the interview she had said, I'm sorry, I don't have a citation for this, but recording from memory, she said, as a child, she thought, one day I want to be the first woman Prime Minister. And then Margaret Thatcher came along and took that away from her. But she still held this of, I want to be a female prime minister one day. So this was the time,
of her angle.
The opportunity came up because David Cameron stepped down. He said, I don't want to fucking do this because I don't agree with the decision, whatever. And I guess other people in the party were probably hesitant because a lot of the, there's the split in the Conservative government of half of them wanting to remain, half of them wanting to leave. And also it's a big responsibility, and she just saw it as an opportunity to go, I can finally step up and I can actually be the Prime Minister and I can be on the history books and everything. And as far as I know, that's the reason why she took the job as Prime Minister. So I think if on those grounds, I would say it wasn't the right thing for her to do. She shouldn't have taken on a job that she wanted. The job, she just didn't want it at this time, and that's why she's done such a poor fucking job. Maybe 5 years ago, if she had gotten an opportunity and taken it then, she could have done a lot better.
Thatcher, in a way.
Yeah.
She's like the anti-Thatcher.
Thatcher came in and did a load of stuff that needed to be done.
And people couldn't, a lot of people didn't like her, but they really couldn't argue that she was getting the bloody job done. And Theresa May, I think, is everybody really wanted to like her, but she
I started off going, hopefully she'll be the person who delivers this, But yeah, so in my opinion, I think she hasn't, as we can say, she hasn't done a good job, and she probably shouldn't have tried.
She talked a lot of air, and that seemed to be a lot of it. That's it.
So I think we covered that one quite nicely. Let's move on to your topic.
Yeah, we talked a lot about something that probably, we could have gone on and on about that. I think it's a really deep topic, but at the end of the day, I suppose in a lot of ways it's just first world problems as well. So but sugar taxes.
We live in the first world, so all of our problems are first world problems.
Sometimes it's,
we don't live in the third world. We don't experience third world
just
problems.
Because we got most things straightened out doesn't mean there's things that aren't needing to be ironed out.
If the entire country was more economically developed, and the entire planet rather was more economically developed, and they're all first world countries, we'd still be having these problems and these conversations. So what's to stop us having them now? Just because there's third worlds out there, I'm not going to stop worrying about my here and my now, just because other people have problems in their countries. I can't spend my time trying to solve their problems, so let me try and solve my own.
Yeah. So, centrism seems to be somehow on the rise, but lacks identity and maybe even definition at the moment.
People are going, it's like tofu, what is it?
Yeah,
everyone's talking about it and complaining about it.
I've noticed more and more people notice centrism, and maybe this is because I'm following fairly centristic people on the internet and such, and I tend towards that myself in a way. But
I'd say it's an ideology that I subscribe to. I follow quite happily because
is it one ideology though? I don't think
it's probably a collection.
I don't think centrism is an ideology.
By definition, it's balanced, so it must be multiple different things come together.
If it is, it's a very fluid ideology, I think.
I think that's part of it though,
because it's almost like there's so many different ways you could end up being defined in some sense as a centrist, I think. Because I figured out that I prefer balance in all things, and that extends into like the political and the philosophical and etc. The existential, whatever you need to, you need the left and the right basically in politics, and you need to be able to use those policies and other policies outside of those. In a pragmatic sense, sort of thing. And if things get too authoritarian, then you need to drop that down. But if things get too free, then maybe there's some amount of authority that needs to be introduced, and it's about keeping things on the level. But I don't think that's the only way you can be a centrist, because I think with me it's literally my biases lean me to the centre. Because I want to see things where it's meeting in the middle, and I actually realised that idea of centrism is actually, I think it's either Plato or Aristotle, I'm pretty sure it's Plato, that spoke about the golden mean, and that's
I think I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's basically an idea in virtue ethics, which was pretty much Plato's invention.
Okay, define that.
Virtue ethics is basically where your ethical framework is defined by concepts. So say like bravery is a virtue, and then you so these are valuable traits as a human being. So then there's the bravery, maybe like honesty, but in these there is variants that you could say, like bravery and foolhardiness are almost basically the same thing, and it's about a balance in the middle of these two things.
I'm going to be really nerdy and like intersect with
so there's
the way that
there's like a gun-ho nature and there's a foolhardy nature, and between gun-ho and foolhardy or something there's basically I might be missing the definition of it.
No, I get where you're coming from, and like, so I'm going to be nerdy and inject some Warhammer like lore here. So the Chaos Gods, the main 4 strongest deities that are sort of like they're an echo of all emotion made manifest in sort of an alternate reality that it touches into our reality. And they all based around sort of one idea, and it is sort of like these virtue ethics of, for example, Khorne the Blood God is about, you know, bloodthirsty savagery, but at the same time it's about martial skill and honor. So it's the two really extremes of each side, but somewhere in the middle, because it's based on all these emotions tied together, you can sort of get a centrist who would be a balanced individual where it's not too fast, and then the other ones, you know, decay but also stability because of stagnation, change but also hope to like So I like those ideas, you know.
Yeah, with pretty ancient ideas, literally ancient Greek. But yeah, I've noticed more and more in conversations online, arguments about what centrism is. And I noticed in Tim Paul's videos, a lot of people will try and challenge his centrism. There'll be you know, and he calls this out as well, saying, "Oh, people call me left, people call me right," and that sort of thing. I think that's when you know you're a centrist, you know, when then like, everybody is calling you something else, and nobody
the opposite
seems to
of
think,
what they are.
yeah, because when you don't take sides, you're not on anybody's side, so they see you as well. He's not on my side, so that must mean he's against me. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Just because I'm not taking your side doesn't mean I'm not on your side. Well, everybody's side want the best for everybody, want peace and not war. But you know, it doesn't mean that there isn't battles to be fought. Yeah.
I think I had an idea and I've just lost it. I'm going to try and pick it back up. Hang on.
Okay, man. I mean, this is a really open-ended area of discussion because you know, I think.
Oh, that's
centrism,
it. No,
something
people
that
mistake
need to talk
centrism
about.
for fence sitting.
Because I guess in one sense, the Liberal Democrats could be seen as a sort of centrist party, but I don't think they are. I think they're just seemingly, I don't know, I'm not even sure. They don't seem very liberal or democratic at the moment with a lot of parties. Comes out of them.
Oh no, like a very short side topic. A lot of the British political parties are just shallow husks of what they originally were created for.
It's layers of pantomime at this point. I think
it was a
pantomime
isn't about conservation
and
you know what would you say is an economic right wing. The Labour Party isn't a working man's party anymore.
No,
it's a
communist party.
Yeah. So they've all devolved from the original were, but they've kept their original titles. So I think like part of it should be like, should they rebrand themselves to be more reflective of what they stand for? I would strongly say yes. But going back to the topic of centrism, so like the thing that pisses me off is when I see people attacking centrism as fence sitting. Of someone who doesn't take any side and doesn't fight for anything. It's like, no, if anything, it's the opposite. It's instead of being sat on the fence and saying, I'm not getting involved in this and putting your hands up, it's the opposite. You instead of just, you know, a far left is only attacking in one direction, a far right is only attacking in one direction, and attacking the same amount of people. But in the centre, you're being attacked from both sides, so you're surrounded by enemies in a sense, you know.
That's
it's not fence sitting. It's almost like the opposite. Really. Yeah, in the culture war, that's you're having to deal with. 1 minute you're arguing with someone who's promoting one extremism, and the next you're arguing completely different points, and you're taking the side that you just fought against. In that sense,
Mm.
and vice versa when it flips round.
I think centrists
and then you
see
just look
context
terrible
of
to
things.
everyone, though.
They'll not just go, okay, is this correct in isolation? They'll say, is this correct in this situation, with these things in mind, with the, with different aspects.
It's about breaking it down. I'm not going to take an extremist point of view. I'm going to take little bits of everything, put it together, take all the good bits. I think that's what... If I use the term we and we're, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
We're trying to take the best of everything and put it together as this perfectly homogenized ideology.
Yeah, and I think
if we go back to the original point of, is it an ideology? Yes, it is. But it's made up of lots of little things.
It's at least an area of thought. It's at least it's a thing, even if it's not an ideology as such. I think
I'll use the term loosely, I guess, because I can't think of something better.
A group of ideas. I don't know. Yeah, this is what I mean. It seems like an area of thought that needs to. Well, this is the thing, because
taking what we can try and define and pick out as the better bits.
Centrism is a response to the left and right dichotomy. So it's everything outside of a dichotomy, which means it's not like any one thing. It's just not two things.
I've seen people on the left and the right, though, try and argue that. It's like, well, centrists must be nothing because they're not this and they're not that. It's like, well, yeah, because we don't want to be either extreme.
Centrists are a very diverse group, psychologically.
It's opposition to extremism. I think that's the simplest way I can put it.
I think skepticism and centrism probably lend themselves very well to each other, because if you're skeptical of things, it means that you said
into centrism, didn't it? In the sense of,
skepticism and centrism have both been things.
Oh,
for a
yeah,
long
of
period
course.
Of time.
But in the current,
you mean in the
current
iteration.
era, in the current
this
iteration,
is the thing.
culture war.
I think skepticism probably, especially in the modern sense of the term, has a lot of area of discussion that could be explored in itself.
Everyone's always been skeptical of something, but if we're taking these phrases in the here and now and the connotation.
Well, it's shown that skepticism is a variable personality trait in a sense. Mm-hmm. It's definitely shown that there's people who are willing to just take any truth that's fed to them, and there's other who won't even.
And I've seen people that I know
be paid to take
going from a far right extremist view straight to a far left extremist view, and they've not gone along the journey on the middle. They haven't been skeptical of either. They've just gone, yep, okay, I'm being told this one's the best, so I'll now follow this, and that's not healthy.
The funny thing, because this time 20 odd years ago, the far left would have been the ones that were shouting from the rooftops about free speech and free expression and being able to say what you want and screw political correctness and all this sort of stuff, but and they've abandoned that fight, and it's like, how did that happen? And that's it. To me, it's got to be manipulation. It's got to be social manipulation via the media, and it's clear as day that it's what's happening. But it makes everything in that sort of realm.
I get so
very
frustrated
hard to trust and
when I see people try and say it's political correct, like when someone is making the fight for political correctness and someone's reply to it is political correctness the hill you want to die on? It's like, what kind of question is that? If you're going to die on a hill, that should probably be one of the hills that you pick over something that just it's a human right at the end of the day, or at least it should be. If it's certainly not treated as a human right in England, and, the whole of Britain, and it feels like lots of parts of Europe. I'm very critical of the United States of America, but that's the one thing they've really got right, is you can go around and say what you want. Now,
I think rights are created, but if we're going to create rights, then free expression should be one of those. And that's free expression, not free, damage to other people's property, that's not expression. Well, even though that is expression, the other things can be.
Let me iterate now strongly and clearly. I want people to have the right to have terrible ideas and voice their terrible, horrible, disgusting ideas. And I want them to be able to say those things. I don't want them to go around and do horrible things, but it's fine because I want them to have the right to say them and then choose not to. I don't want people to actually want to go around spouting racist, rhetoric. I don't want people to be out in the street saying horrible things about people's creeds and cultures. I want people to have the rights to be able to do it, but choose not to.
Yeah, we
I
should
want
be
people
thankful
to
for those
know
who challenge
better.
our most cherished perspectives and positions and opinions, because they are so far doing a public service.
I want everyone to make their own choice,
Something
not
like
to be
that was said
terrible.
by J.S. Mill.
Because if people aren't being terrible because they're told they're not allowed to be terrible, they're still harbouring those terrible thoughts.
And the thing is,
I want people to make the choice on their own accord to not be terrible.
if I
Have
think
their own
somebody's being
freedom.
terrible, it's me that thinks that they're being terrible. They might think they're not being terrible, and who am I to say what is terrible? But at the same time, if it gets to the point that something is demonstrably terrible, then we can think certain sorts of terrible can all be agreed on, even by the person who's doing the terrible. And if it can't be, it's probably because their brain doesn't work. And most people are at least a little bit insane, but
And I think
some people's brains just don't work.
No, unfortunately so.
And yeah,
but it's like the same reason that it sort of goes on my same problem with religion. Is, if you're telling people they can't do certain things because something bad will happen, like the idea of being sent to an eternal abyss, then they're not choosing to be good people. They're doing it out of fear.
Yeah.
They're doing it out of a form of control. I don't want people to be controlled. I mean, this kind of goes back on what I was trying to say earlier about the syntax.
I was going to say this
is on a wider scale of like actual, rather than self-destructive behaviour. That's one thing, but a behaviour that affects other people. I want people to behave nicely to their fellow, people around them, out of their own volition.
So it's okay to nudge people through the door, but it's not okay to like launch them through the door, kicking and screaming or whatever. Is that what you're saying? Like, so.
Well, I think I've got different views.
The door. I think people will walk through the right doors if you show them the right doors.
I've got
at the
different
right
views
time.
regarding self-destructive behaviour and outwardly destructive behaviour. I think we probably should try and encourage people to be less self-destructive, but we should make people not want to be destructive to other people.
Yeah, I mean, there's people who would probably argue that would say that people being self-destructive to themselves has therefore knock-on effects to other people's proneness to destruction, like by somebody, say, a parent makes themselves unwell through some sort of, I don't know, illegal means, or even not even illegal means, for any means, and they have dependents. I mean, should they be policed in some sense to stop them doing things that are bad for them? Or should they be told not? Opinion, I think should they not go on any hang glider rides or anything like that?
Okay, I get your point.
You see, yeah. Well, you see, but it's a slippery slope. It's always a slippery slope. As soon as you've got some sort of regulation you want in place, it's like, how far does this regulation go, and where do you draw the line? And sometimes it's impossible, and it has to be an arbitrary point. And sometimes, like I say, I don't think there's such a thing as fair, but sometimes there is something that can be agreed on that's called fair enough, and that's when everybody can go, fair enough.
I think that's maybe the two words put together that I've said most in my life, because it sort of makes an argument with me. That's how I go. It's my way of saying I agree. I don't want to agree, but I do agree. I'm skeptical
of fairness, but I'm really big on enoughness. So it's almost like when you can't have perfectly fair ever. You can only ever have fair enough, and at that point, I don't think you can't measure how fair enough is. Fair enough is basically when everybody agrees that fair enough. That's when, which is strange in a way, because it shouldn't work like that according to the way people think, but in actuality that does seem to be how it plays out. Like, there is no such thing as fair, there's only fair enough. And fair play. There's also fair play, which is another thing that people say all the time. And
I think that it brought us full circle, because being able to disagree with something, or wanting to disagree with something, but going, there's enough good points there that I can see where they're coming from, and I can see why they've come to that sort of reasoning.
Yeah,
well, and that is the balance of centrism.
When somebody strikes a deal, it's like, how do you define if the deal is fair?
And how
you literally can't, but you can define if it's fair enough, and that's when both parties agree.
And that's all about balance and centrism.
Yeah, it is about balance. Yeah, it's about finding a balance between so many things that you can't actually balance them properly, but you only have to agree when that's good enough.
The phrase, the healthy
medium. It's like
medium.
balancing a picture or something. You can't get it to this, like the molecule balance, and even if you could, I don't think it's quite how it works.
You totally can.
Yeah,
You've got like
perfect level.
I get what you mean.
I get what you mean. Perfect level. You can't experience perfect level in society, or in some sort of equality or fairness based.
I get the metaphor and the device.
It was. I was quite aware that it was a really bad analogy, but it's the best I could pull out of my head at the time.
Cool. But that's a good one, because I maybe won't just finish it just there, because I really do base and just working out on my own over the years, before like the culture war and the idea of centrism really flared up the past couple years. I really figured out a very long time ago that yin yang is what I like in my life. I don't want to be this completely pure thing, and I don't want to be this terrible, horrible thing. I want to be just the right amounts of both, that I feel comfortable as a person. And like you've said to me, like, everything in moderation, even moderation. And there are some things, it's like, do you know what? I will let myself be excessive on something, I'm going to allow myself to, I'll be excessive about collecting things in a healthy manner. Yeah. It's going far, going beyond moderation.
We need obsessed people as a species. It takes obsessed people to get the very best things done,
So, and I like the symbolism. I like the symbolism of yin yang as well.
It's a very effective.
It's funny, you fucking see it everywhere as well.
Yeah.
It's quite a clever thing, but that's probably because it is everywhere. So, the next one's a bit more of a weird one, but it's like I've been experiencing unfolding for the past few months, and it's led some ideas and made me think about it quite a lot. Of how did we get this far, and why has this occurred? So, this topic is Warwick Davis versus 4chan.
Probably because the internet.
Definitely because the internet. Yeah.
But from there, probably we could say that about literally everything almost these days.
So, what has been the case of Warwick Davis versus 4chan? Let me explain. People on 4chan say horrible things. It's been the same way for the past decade. It will be the same way for the next decade. People will say absolutely disgusting things and, describe horrible scenarios or show horrible videos, etc.
Mostly just
express disgusting desires. Yeah. Because it's the one place you can do it behind a mask completely without ever, 1 minute, the next minute you're not that post anymore. That post was a one-time thing. It doesn't follow you round because it's not tied to a username like social media. And that's Chan culture. Some people just say absolutely horrible things. So one thing that was said a while ago was someone made a thread talking about Warwick Davis, and they listed in quite gruesome detail what they would like to do to Warwick Davis because they found his appearance grotesque. And that's not very nice. I don't think Warwick Davis deserves that, but he's a public figure. Does that mean he deserves it? No, probably not. No one deserves to be treated that way. But there's this one very grotesque definition of what someone wanted to do in terms of they wanted to capture Warwick Davis and starve him and get him to the point where he was desperate, and then give him this glimmer of hope and feed him this lovely, divine meal. And then it turns out he's also captured Warwick Davis's son, and it's like the fucking Scott Tenorman thing that Cartman did in South Park, basically. Right. They ripped off Scott Tenorman Must Die, which is probably the best South Park episode. At the same time, it's the most gruesome, the most horrible one, and it's one. You're not rooting for Cartman in that, but it's just it's the shock value.
I was just happy that Radiohead were in episode of South Park.
Yeah,
little baby.
Oh, what a pussy.
Little baby.
But yeah, so Warwick Davis caught wind of this, because it was a copy pasta and it ended up circulating a bit. Copy pasta being a great big block of text that gets, saved into a text file, so someone can post it the next day and the next day and the next day and a year later and 5 years later, and you'll see it crop up again and again and again. So there's the context. Warwick Davis's reaction was, what do people do now? Well, if someone does something you get outraged. So in Warwick Davis's outrage, through Twitter, he put a post directed to the 4chan Twitter account, which I believe isn't really active. I think it is literally just there for like a status of when the website's up and down and if something's gone wrong when it's being worked on. But because people have gotten so used to using Twitter for messaging a company to say, I've had this problem, this has gone wrong, or, you know, I want your statement on this. So his message was out at 4chan like, I've written to you, not replied, you'll be hearing from my lawyers. And it's just like, right, okay, 4chan is currently owned by a Japanese man who doesn't give a fuck because he bought this website off of fucking Moot, and it's just a nice way for him to make a load of advertising money now because adverts are running in the background. So he doesn't give a fuck, and he's in Japan, so he's like not within the legal jurisdiction that Warwick Davis has reach over either. But it's just the thing that rubbed me the wrong way, because I don't think he should have been treated that way. But at the same time, it's like, well, everyone says horrible things about every single celebrity. The sad truth is they shouldn't say those things. It's not nice that people are, and I wish they wouldn't, but get over it.
I mean, why can't you just be the bigger person?
You can't go that way. That's too easy. It's too obvious.
Yeah, it is.
But that's the point. That's what everyone's doing. So Warwick Davis kicked off over this. How did 4chan respond, do you think?
They probably just said what I said over and over and over again.
They fucking doubled down.
You briefly mentioned it, but you didn't go into detail of what they might have said. But I mean, it's too easy. And I mean, dude,
it's worse than that. Like, it's now a challenge that people are fucking like competing to write the most gruesome, well-detailed pieces of fiction detailing what they would do to Warwick Davis. Every day, constantly.
Fan fiction horror about Warwick Davis and the torture of.
Yeah. Every day, and it's just like
it's become a meme culture.
Yeah. So now it's fun to do, and now it's forbidden fruit, and people want to do it more. And people, you know, the threads are filled with Warwick Davis's screenshots of his messages.
If I'd
going
been Warwick
like,
Davis, I'd probably be flattered because
but he's not.
Because
he's
people joke
too
about things that they care about.
Yeah, true. But
I mean, there's a yeah.
It's been going on for months, and there's like.
Be put on the internet. Should we even talk about this joke? I'm not going. But there's plenty of jokes, you know, very very old racist.
No, talk
jokes.
about jokes. They're jokes.
Yeah, well, what if they're extremely racist jokes from back in the day that used to, you know, everybody used to just know that joke and they wouldn't even need to say it. But,
yeah, I get your point.
But sweating like a.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where I was going with that joke. But I mean. Yeah, these are things that people used to be able to say, I guess, and used to be able to.
People
know,
have gotten used to it,
and now it just seems to be that as soon as you get any, I mean, those sort of jokes could not even be uttered. I mean, we do best to probably keep those off of.
So
it seems like people are being, people are being mentally manipulated to self-police, and I mean. Warwick Davis has probably just taken advantage of that. Really.
Well, if he just let it go, it would have got dropped.
Yeah.
But instead, it's all day, every day. There is a Warwick Davis thread on the TV board of 4chan. And I like the poetry of it. It's just like, there's a little bit of maybe what you could call justice there. He's made a big deal out of it, so now it's a big deal. And now everyone's making a big deal out of it in the way that he didn't want it. Someone's thread today, this morning, when I was on 4chan was... looked through the catalogue, couldn't find any good threads, let's have a Warwick Davis thread. Or be stealth on saying, let's talk about Britain's favourite Star Wars actor or something like that.
I mean, what if Warwick Davis knew exactly what he was doing and he's just
maybe
done it for publicity?
It is a bit of publicity, but do you want 4chan publicity? I know they say all publicity is good publicity.
I don't know, I mean...
It's not like everyone's going to go out and look at like his media and things that he's done because of it. They're just going to sit in their threads and just talk about how they want to like
pretty well.
Kick him like a football.
Michael Rosen's probably gone from some sort of like...
I don't even know who that is.
You don't know? No? Okay. No. Well, he seems to be all over a lot. There's a lot of memes that he seems to be involved in, and I know the kids seem to like featuring him in all of their nonsense they seem to create, Let's Plays and crap like that.
Fair enough.
Using that sort of stuff. And Michael Rosen's that guy who did various stories and would put on like silly voices. He used to go around schools in the 80s, and now he's some sort of internet culture meme. It's pretty weird. He's a really creepy looking guy. He looks like he might be a mouse man or something. It's like part man, part mouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think my point out of this, apart from like the ridiculousness of it, that there are daily threads talking about how people want to, torture this man who, I don't know, I think it probably rubs people the wrong way, because there's also that delusion of grandeur there as well. That's what rubs people the wrong way.
He was Willow. I mean, if most people were Willow, they'd probably feel like bigger than they are.
I'm not going to go for low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, no, that's there. It's all the fruit that's there these days.
Yeah, true.
It's all low-hanging fruit. You have to get through the low-hanging fruit to get to the rest of it.
Wash it off.
Yeah.
But what I term as social media bow downs, because everyone's gotten so used to, I'm outraged by this, I'm going to complain about it, and then the company's retort is, oh, we're so sorry, let's ban these people, let's find out, so sorry, Mr. Davis, let me suck your penis to make you feel a bit better. What can we do? And it's like, 4chan's not that website. 4chan's administration, shadowy figures behind the scenes that are annoyed that they're having to babysit these toddlers having retarded arguments on the internet. The user base isn't accountable or tracked. They're anonymous. It's not like you can ban them, because they'll just change that. You turn your router off, you turn it back on, and you've got a new IP address. So that doesn't work. They're not tied to an account. So what can if the owners of 4chan did go, Mr. Davis was so sorry, what could they do? They can't. So what was he expecting to get back? He's expecting the same reaction he'd get from Twitter or Facebook or a big community, and it doesn't work that way. But you've come to expect this, and you're trying to force everyone to play by the same rules. And it's one corner of the internet where those rules don't apply, and he needs to accept that.
I mean, the rules are still being established for the internet. Let's be real.
Oh yeah.
They're kind of making,
but the rules
are being invented as they go along.
Current year's rules.
It's more like, let's see how far the boundaries can be pushed, rather than the rules are far from being defined. There's lots of rules that haven't even been discovered yet.
So yeah, that's what I found funny and the interesting thing about Warwick Davis versus 4chan.
It's pretty funny and interesting.
It's in the middle. I'm looking to see how far it gets taken.
Yeah,
because it will only spiral out of control.
Well, I mean, it might lead to a point where we can say retard offensively again, and it's okay.
Yeah, maybe. Cool.
So, I have a theory that intersectionality equals prejudice.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And let me just explain this in a little bit more detail, because we know by now, all of us, and if we don't, we need to apparently, because social justice, but intersectionality is the theory that people can be understood by their group categorizations, and in most cases they'll use certain primary categorizations of identity to define an individual person, and oftentimes that'll be gender or race or
religion and many other characteristics,
political orientation and social status, this sort of thing, and then by knowing all these categories, or age as well, yes, you're right, yeah.
It's not looked true. As much, but it's creeped in there.
That is one. No, I mean, it's being taught in universities and colleges.
That's the thing that worries me. The fact that it's being taught.
And in psychology. I mean, my last psychology module from my psychology degree, a lot of it was just basically intersectionality in disguise, but badly, because, I mean, they used the word intersectionality so much that it wasn't exactly difficult to discern. But with intersectionality, the key thing is that you need to know these identity categories and how they affect people, and how they intersect. So then if you know somebody is a straight white male, for example,
so it's all about Venn diagrams,
a transgender black male to female, then these people will be very different based on those categories. Now, it's not from here. I find it difficult to understand that anybody could not see that is just basically formulated and systemized prejudice.
Yeah, I mean, let's use your example.
People, because it's
This
here's some
cis straight white male.
Judge a person.
This cis straight white male and this transgender black female. They could be absolutely best friends that spend all day, every day together. It turns out they have the same interests. They like the same music. They like the same other forms of media, television, movies, video games. They both like going out and playing the same sports together. You know, they both like riding bicycles. They both like the same food. And that could be how they are. They could be the best of friends. They could have all the same interests, all the same ideas. Yeah, they could agree on absolutely everything because they're such good friends. But then intersectional social justice comes in and says, no, you must be this way, you must be this way. We're going to, instead of you naturally growing together and being together and working well together and being two human beings who are very compatible, no, we're going to rip you apart. You go over in this section of the Venn diagram. You go over in this section of the Venn diagram. You need to stay with all the people in your section of the Venn diagram. You must stay there and you must behave like this with these people. You over in that one and you stick with your group and the groups that are close by around you.
Yeah.
What a divisive, fucking disgusting ideology.
The idea of judging people by identity, one identity dimension, so like judging somebody by their race alone, and then going, well, that's wrong, which it obviously is, and then saying, well, what you need to do is put people in lots of boxes and then try and make a three-dimensional shape out of them and see where they overlap and things, and then we know a person. But I mean, even that makes no sense, because for a start, that these dimensions of personality or dimensions of identity, like they're basically infinite. I mean, you could go on forever saying like, okay, well, what's your race, what's your age, what's your gender, what's your favourite colour, what colour hair are you, how tall are you?
Basically, none of them take into account personality. It's all
that's a
traits of physical existence, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean,
and it's the opposite of individualism.
Just makes it another reason why it's wrong. But the way that makes it prejudice is that you're taking a handful of characteristics of a person and then prejudging them before you know them with these characteristics, and it seems very strange how the whole concept could get so far without anybody asking questions. And I mean, people are asking questions of the intersectional approach, and they seem to be getting in a lot of trouble for doing so. There's people losing their jobs over this sort of thing. So it's almost makes me think, oh, hang on, are they just gone, we've figured out how we can be prejudiced, and then it's okay, and we can say how it's okay to be prejudiced?
I don't think they have the self-awareness to understand that they're being prejudiced, because they've been told it's not prejudice, and they've been told it's the right thing.
The people teaching it.
Yeah, I think even the people teaching it, I think to a level,
following the lead.
Some of the people teaching it are sucked in, and I think they haven't got the awareness either. Obviously, some must, because they're all individuals, and I'm going to treat them as such, and I'm not going to make assumptions based on what they're doing.
Like I say, I did a university degree, and the last module included a lot of intersectional nonsense in a psychology degree, and I was the only person asking any questions of it when it was saying things like the differences in crime rates between races is down to white racism, and things like that. So it's a bit like, well, it's definitely coming from somewhere, but it seems it's more bizarre that people aren't questioning it than that it seems to be coming from somewhere. But if it's coming from somewhere, I mean, yeah, you could be right. Maybe they're just not very self-aware. Maybe they've just like stumbled into a dumb ideology that doesn't make any sense, that just so happens to be controlling people for their benefit. Or they know exactly what they're doing, and they're controlling people for their benefit and being able to exercise prejudice themselves in their own way to benefit them. But I don't know. I mean, it seems that there's a lot going on with the idea of with the whole acceptance of intersectionality as a element of people's worldview. That it just seems like, I don't know, maybe it's just because it seems like the nice the nice way of doing things.
It's
but
prejudice and racism with a nice coat of paint.
Yeah, it's almost like, oh, look, we're not judging people by their race anymore. We're judging people by their race, age, gender. And, so it's like you've been more judgmental and you're going to get it even more wrong. So you're trying to say that, like, you know...
But there is a lot of it is also... It's brainwashing, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're brainwashed and tricked into thinking this is the right way to go about it. I think that's a big part of the problem.
Yeah, but, I mean... The major irony is that the whole point of it seems to be to at least intend on reducing prejudice and solving prejudice and being able to even police prejudice. And in fact, it actually does the complete opposite and just offers a bigger kind of prejudice instead of the original one, which was just people squabbling about petty differences.
Instead of being a great big...
people defining each other by... arbitrary characteristics.
Instead of being a great big block of prejudice, it's many thick layers of prejudice stacked on top of each other. It's like, well, there's only a bit of this and a bit of this, but it's just the same equation, like equal amount of prejudice in total in the end anyway. Yeah, probably more. It's
pretty clear to see as well why the individualists that seem to have collected on the internet, like droplets of water in a rainstorm, why they're so much against this, because they're like, hey, well, we're individuals, everybody's individuals, you can't judge people by these arbitrary characteristics. I think they understand
all
that
case
that's
by
prejudice.
case.
And it's interesting that the people who can see these things anyway and don't need to have some sort of system of rules to come to terms with it are the ones that,
which one feels more natural and which one has to be taught.
Are the ones that are not in control. So it's almost like the people who don't get it are in control. Seems a little bit worrying, but
like I just said, which one feels natural and seems to occur more fluidly, and which one needs to be taught and forced into people's heads?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I think it's almost like the conclusions of intersectionality that people want to embrace more than the actual formulation, because it's almost like they'll just go, oh, don't be bad to ethnic minorities. And white people are all bad people, and it's almost like that somehow comes across like the nice opinion, and I think it all relates back to might not have said on
it's the whole idea of it being guilt, isn't it?
Yeah, well, no, it's more where people were taught about racism at an age where they couldn't understand racism, and that's the bit that
didn't make sense to me, because I always understood racism.
Don't be bad to black or Asian people, like in the people being taught in the UK mostly. And I mean, I think even the black people being taught about racism, even some of the Chinese people have been taught about racism, the kids, they're like 3 or 4 or 5 years old, the way that they teach it comes across like, don't be bad to ethnic minorities, and they're like, you can't be bad to me.
Yeah, right, I think you're right there, because as a child I always thought like that was a bit of a joke when people were saying like that. I always thought it was like a tongue-in-cheek thing. The big difference again,
literally,
I count my blessings, because from a young age I think my mum, both my parents definitely, very very much my mum has always sort of had the idealism of individualism.
And so she's always like awkward, didn't it? As well?
Yeah, it's all... she's always like imprinted on me, like treat everyone as they want to be treated, treat other people as you want to be treated, which kind of plays into it, because it's like you're an individual and you want to feel nice about things, so you want them to feel nice about things.
It's funny you say that. And
she sort of always had this, treat people. She never told me specifically treat people as individuals, but that's kind of what she always played off of.
That's funny, because it's like Immanuel Kant said, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, right? And I can't remember the name of the philosopher who said that that can be improved on by doing unto others as they would have be done by. So like they would like to be treated themselves, not as you. So that kind of shows it a difference.
Definitely makes more sense as well. Yeah.
It's a stage further than that, and it's do unto others as they are an entity unto themselves, and that's to say that you don't treat them how they want to be treated. You don't treat them how you want to be treated. You treat them as the entity they are. So you treat them like
respect
what
who they are and what they
are should be treated. So if they act like something or somebody that is a friend, then you treat them as a friend. If they act like something or somebody that acts like an enemy, you treat them as an enemy, I suppose, in a way, or at least treat them as they somebody who sees you as an enemy, if you see what I mean. So if it's somebody's doesn't like you, then you treat them as somebody who doesn't like you. No matter however you want to treat somebody who doesn't like you, down from there, that's up to you. But you treat them as they are an entity unto themselves. So it's like everything is unique, everybody is unique. So you treat them like a unique entity, and that's even in context as well, because different people can be different ways at different times. You wouldn't treat somebody the same as if they're awake and asleep.
Yeah, so it was just imprinted to me from a young age. Don't be prejudiced, basically. That's what it really boiled down to, and that's kind of how it's presented to me as well, very specifically through the phrasing. Don't treat people with prejudice. That's always just been a very clear, very simple, and very logical, and very easy to live by moral.
It never made sense.
So how could no one else get this?
Somebody with prejudice, or treat people
exactly.
with prejudice. It's not even something that needed to be taught to me. It was almost like it's like my dad would be like, "Oh, you should do this way, otherwise people are going to judge you. Like, you should wear your shirt tucked in, or you should like use your cutlery the right way around. Otherwise, people are going to think you're a slob." And I'm like, "Well, so." I don't care if they think I'm a slob. Like, who are they to judge me just because I hold my cutlery the wrong way round? Or who are they? They're just if they think that, they're just idiots. They're just being prejudiced. They don't know me, or they don't understand how it is to judge people. So
it creates this game for me, at least. And I don't know if you ever felt this way of baiting people in a way of like, well, fine. If they're going to think that if they're going to prejudge me based on these things, I'm going to keep doing them, and they can prejudge me, fine. And I'm gonna fucking blow their mind when I show them that they're wrong. I'll let them prejudge me, and I'll show them they were incorrect.
Yeah, well, I mean, as soon as somebody's prejudgmental, I'm just like, well, I don't value your assessment at this point because you basically work without evidence. And I've had this interesting one. I've had this argument a few times now, and it's like it's for different reasons. It comes from different places, but it's that. I don't think prejudice is a problem because it's unethical or immoral. I think it's illogical, it's irrational, it's unreasonable. It's not like it's offensive or something. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it has no benefit.
No, it's not even just doesn't have benefit. It's just wrong. It's not ethically wrong. It's like logically. Technically wrong. Yeah, that's what I mean when I say it has no benefit. Why would you do it if it's got? Yeah. That's what I didn't say. I was saying it did not just does it not have any benefit, but it's just literally false. It's like you prejudge something. It's like guessing what's round a corner. And like only having a little bit of evidence to guess exactly what's around the corner. And sure, you could be right 6, 7, 8 times out of 10, but is it worth it for the times that you are going to to be wrong? Yeah.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
You might as well just make a proper assessment.
You should investigate. You should ask somebody.
A post-judgment.
Yeah, instead of like going, you're...
Sure, you can prepare yourself, but you don't never fully commit to it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the moral. You can go, that person's this type of thing. Yeah, maybe they would do this. Maybe they're more likely to. But I'm not going to assume that they definitely will.
Yeah, a really banal one could be like, oh, you're American, so you must like steak or something. And it's like, no, because not all Americans like steak. I mean, even that's not even something that people think.
Not all British people like tea.
Yeah, exactly. Not all British people like tea.
But we can joke about it.
Very few French people eat snails.
I think it's fine to joke about it. Because you're not holding it as a true moral belief.
As alluded before, I think people joke about things to come to terms with things because there's something that people find serious and they want to make it less serious because it's such a big issue. So it's like I said about that whole sweating like a certain type of person on a certain sort of charge, for example. People made that joke, I think, because they understood the seriousness and the gravity of situations like that, and it wasn't to be insulting or derogatory to any kind of race or category of people or anything like that, or to use a word that's upsetting or anything. It was because people realise that this is an important area that needs to be come to terms with. Like there's a lot to like dirty jokes and racist jokes and stuff like that. That just like it taps into people's psyche.
I think what people don't understand is
it's not like them going, "Oh, I don't care about this." It's going, "No, I do care about these things. I want I want us to look seriously about that."
If I'm making jokes that are prejudice, it's not because I agree with them and I think it's good. I'm making jokes because I think they're stupid and funny.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it's always been
funny
to me.
because it's
like
wrong.
the idea of a racist joke is ridiculous because you can't base a person on their race.
There's the
you can't
there's that old like thing
fully characterize them just by that one identity dimension.
There's that old sort of like old thing of like reply to like a stand-up comedian's joke of being like, oh, it's funny because it's true. But sometimes it's funny because it's false.
Yeah.
And I don't think...
Or funny because that's too literal. Or funny because it alludes to a truth. It's almost like the edge of a truth or something like that. It's like you catch a glimpse of it and it's like... It's looking at the clouds and seeing animals in them.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Seeing shapes and, reading patterns in tea leaves. It's finding archetypes and things and going, let's strip this down and see what the pointy bits are in a way. I don't know, but yeah, jokes are a very underappreciated utility these days. Definitely these days. I think in the past, everybody liked to laugh, didn't they? Even those who didn't like to laugh.
Yeah.
I like a laugh as much as the next person, apart from my wife, and Sergeant Major, and old Shekels down the road. In fact, most people like a laugh more than me, but I still like a laugh. Monty Python pointed that one out. Monty Python predicted all this one. That could be a topic for another time, because otherwise we might run out of time. But one time we might do. Monty Python called all this out. They tried to warn us. Monty Python was not just a prophecy, it was a warning.
Yeah, they're not comedians, they're actually clairvoyants.
They actually saw the potential of people and where it could go.
And that sort of plays off the whole clown world thing. Comedians are actually telling the truth, it seems.
Yeah. The people who can see the humour in things, that they see the things. They use the humour because they have to, because they see the things. Otherwise,
sometimes that's the healthiest and safest way to present it.
Yeah. And the only way to keep things balanced. Because in a world of suffering and tragedy, it needs that to keep it from tipping off the scale.
Cool. Do you want to go on to the next one?
Yeah. So we've been following UKIP for a while now, and
I joined last year.
Yeah, I joined quite recently.
Just before everything seemingly changed within the party, though.
And yeah, I think it was in the hope that
things looked like they were going the right way.
Yeah, I've never had a political representative. In the whole time I've been paying any sort of attention to politics, there's nobody who's really talked the exact game that I would like to be heard to be talked, and I don't trust the mainstream politicians, I don't trust the mainstream parties. I think, like I've mentioned before, it's all a pantomime, but with UKIP they seem to have something going on, and I mean obviously, as everybody knows, the mainstream been slandering the pants off them, trying to just paint them as the racist party, and
because it's good to have an enemy. It's good to say, look, here's a common threat.
Well, they made him into the pantomime villain.
The BNP was that before, and they sort of went really low key, kept their heads down, and aren't really. British Nationalist Party isn't really even a thing anymore, is it?
No, well,
that completely
I don't think so. Yeah.
Crumbled. So
really
because the villain of the past is gone. They need a new big bad.
Yeah.
And it seemed that became what UKIP got targeted as.
Yeah, and I presume that was maybe somewhat to do with the collective of YouTubers.
I think there's two factors. There's that, and even without that occurring, the up until recently, Joe Batten being the current leader. And someone I look up to and I think I really respect as a politician. I don't respect politicians because he's very honest. Even if he thinks he's saying the thing that people will disagree with, the thing that won't make him look good, the thing that might make him... He won't dance around the question.
He's been an absolute breath of fresh air.
Yeah, he won't dance around questions and refuse to answer questions.
These are the problems. This is what I'm interested in.
He'll give the bad answer if he needs to give the bad answer.
Yeah, he's not out there to. Well, he is out there to make friends. He is out there to influence people, but he's not there to like paint rainbows and
he's not there
sing
to
lollipops or whatever.
Be friends with the mainstream media. That's not his.
And he's calling it out.
He wants to be friends with the general public, the people. You know.
That's
who he wants to influence, and that's quite right to do so.
It seemed like one of the first politicians that I've ever encountered come across in my lifetime that seemed to be worthy of the title governor.
Yeah.
He's a governor. Like he can govern things. He can call the shots. He can manage a situation. He can get the job done.
So even before the YouTubers joined and that went in the direction, he was already on his own volition standing for Tommy Robinson, because he sees him as someone who wants to stand up and say,
it was probably in the sense
acting the hero.
It was probably the consensus of the party in general. Like most members probably were supporters and defenders of Tommy Robinson. I'd probably say.
I'd say it's a bit of a divide though.
It's probably
because evidently because of what's going on with UKIP now, is half the party is going, oh, we don't want anything to do with this.
Well,
what are you doing?
It now seems to me that the entire leadership of the party is basically saying that we don't want anything to do with Batten because of his. I
wouldn't say the entirety, but it was voted on, so at least a majority, but not an entirety. Because that's how it was. It was all done democratically through voting through officials who have been voted as these representatives within the party. They're not just the leaders; it's the NEC. So they don't hold those positions just because they seized those seats or they have them through some sort of right. They were voted into those positions.
Have you listened to many of the hustling videos yet?
A handful, yeah.
Did you not get the impression that the whole point of them was for them to defend the notion of trying to keep face and trying to create a veil of acceptability so they can, I don't know, work around the media trying to smear them? And I mean, I don't like that at all. That's just them bowing down to the rest of it. That's how you become everybody else.
But it doesn't necessarily speak for all of them. It's not an entirety.
Literally everybody who was speaking at the hustlings, apart from people in the crowd.
That wasn't every single NEC member.
No, it wasn't. But I mean, it's the face of the party. And
it's a majority, but it's not an entirety. An entirety is a 100%. You couldn't say it was all.
I'm not making conclusions from what I've witnessed. It was more of a, what is up with this? Because these people speaking now were the voices of the party and have been the voice of the party.
Well, they're also members because it seems like they gave Carl Benjamin a platform.
Yeah, they seem to be.
So they can't be their biggest target if they're willing to still platform him. So it's not necessarily that, and it wasn't all necessarily NEC members giving their speeches.
Well, no, it wasn't. It was different local MPs and. Yeah, but all of them.
It's a range, though, of various people in various roles, not entirety of leadership.
I'm just wondering if that's going to be. I mean, I
don't agree with them at all.
Isn't that still a problem, though?
Yeah, I don't agree with them.
Because if you've got that being broadcast, if that's the message that's being broadcast, then surely that's what's going to define the party.
Yeah, so I get that.
If that's
I'm not saying I agree with them.
I'd be interested to see where that goes, because if the party is deciding to take the direction of we're gonna just do what the media and the people that we're trying to bring around to thinking differently want us to do, we're gonna act that way regardless of whether we think otherwise.
They don't understand the mainstream media is a beast that they'll never please.
We're putting our principles aside to build the party, which is exactly the opposite of what I want to see.
Yeah,
and it's
I agree.
Exactly the thing that I have a problem with in politics in general, or maybe not the exact thing, but like that is one of the exact things.
Yeah, Gerard didn't care about pleasing the media, so they went, "We want you out, mate."
So that's the thing. When I heard it was just the NEC, I mean, just the NEC. It's not even a just. It's a big thing for that to be that to be that way rather than any other way. But when you hear the high ups basically echoing that and going, yeah, we need to get Gerard out and or not have him run for leadership because it's bad optics, basically.
And also they're very vague about what the reasons were.
I mean, I
liked
liked Gerard because he wasn't bad. He wasn't playing the optics game as much, and even he was probably playing it a bit. To be honest, it was definitely getting to the point where like he was just at least saying, I don't want to talk about these things anymore. But
I think that was only because his point was, I've already talked about these things. I've already been through several interviews where I've been asked these questions.
Yeah.
That information's already out there for the public.
Yeah.
I've already fed that to you. Why are you asking me again? I want to talk about what this party stands for. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I want to give you information about the good things we're doing, and you're not giving me an opportunity. And that's what a lot of it boiled down to.
Every time I heard him speak on those interviews, the ones that have apparently presented him as a racist and bigoted, sexist and whatever, Islamophobe, and they've succeeded in this, obviously, because why else would the party be going, oh, well, we've taken a hit here, and we're going to have to take Gerard out of the limelight and stuff, and it's like, you're just playing their game now.
You've let them win.
You've just conceded defeat.
And you'll never please them.
That's a shame.
You can do whatever they ask you to do. You can make the apologies. And you can take Gerard Barron out. You can stop giving the wrong rhetoric and having wrong think, and you're still going to be the big bad because you're the candidate for the big bad at the moment. You're the enemy. You're the one that they're going to force into the bad lights.
Yeah, it still seems mighty convenient how the Brexit Party turned up and steered things back to where the politicians all wanted it, and then got UKIP out of the picture by
like a convenient tool.
Yeah. It was, and I saw Farage in
3 months
going around going,
well,
we are basically UKIP, but we care more about Brexit, and at least we're not racist. And it's like, fucking hell, Farage, like, really, come on.
Oh, here's the bus. Under you go.
Spends like
goodbye.
Nearly a decade or whatever, more than a decade, I'm not even sure. A long bloody time.
20 plus years.
Was it he was really with them that long? Yeah, of course he was. I was going to say it was a long time. But
maybe longer.
He spent all that time going, UKIP are not a racist party, and then he gets out to his own party and he's like, yeah, well, I had to leave that racist party, didn't I? And they are racist, but don't worry, the Brexit party's on the job. It's like, am I the only one who's not just a little bit sussed here?
Yeah. I honestly felt betrayed.
Yeah, because
I felt hurt.
Yeah, it almost seems like the few fragments of positive potential that are out there in the political landscape are just imploding or fracturing off into the dust.
I mean, the response, because having an eye, I'm the one with the eye on social media in the sense that I don't do Facebook, but I do Twitter. And that's only not through lifestyle choice. I've only been on Twitter for the past year, and it's only to keep my eye on politics. That's what I use Twitter for. A little bit of memery, but mostly politics. Because I've needed an outlet and a way to vocalise, maybe. Because I felt frustrated not having that voice.
It might be good. I could see
and an eye on the ground.
Some of his recent tweets were absolute masterclasses and political genius. It's next level. But yeah, anyway.
Who's that?
Trump.
Oh yeah. Not actually. I don't look at Trump stuff. Actually, I just look at British politics.
It's been all over all sorts of every.
I've been looking at the things that affect me.
The Trump's racist tweets, and I mean, I know there's always Trump's racist, but the most recent racist tweets where he's told 4 congresswomen to go back to their own countries, but actually what he said was, if they don't like America this much, then maybe they could go back to their own countries, or and then
if they think that it's so bad here, go somewhere where you think it's better,
and then they can go and fix it, and then come back and tell us how it's done. So it was actually. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, it's a game though, isn't it?
It's borderline race baiting, but
he knows what he's doing. Yeah, it's sort of a tactic.
He knows what he's doing. He knows they're going to implode over it. He knows the left's going to. Yeah, sorry, tangent.
No, it's all right.
Yeah, it's cool.
But yeah, so my view on Twitter is just like to be keeping up with like the politics that affect me and being able to have an outlet for them. And then I when I saw the email come through, and I'm not using hyperbole here. My heart sank and I was truly saddened when I saw the email come from the NEC's decision that Gerard Batten wouldn't be able to stand as the candidate, because he was the candidate I was going to vote for to be the leader of my party, because I think in my opinion, he's been doing a great job. He's been doing the right job for me. And So I took to Twitter to see. I didn't need to vocalise what I said, because everything I felt and everything I could say was already said by hundreds upon hundreds of other people vocalising how they felt. And anything that I could have said was already said 10 times.
Yeah, I mean, when I found out...
the party wasn't happy,
Yeah, I was hoping
people were cutting their membership cards up. They're saying, no, fuck it. If Jared's not going to be the leader, I'm not going to be here. Because I don't want to be taken in the direction that someone else wants to take it, because they've got the right ideas. And, I mean right ideas in the sense of what the mainstream media is telling us and what we need to have as the right ideas. And Jared did a poll, and it's obviously... It was thousands upon thousands of answers on the poll to say, should he run? And this was before he was told he can't run. It's like, should I be running again? And it was a majority answer of yes, you should run.
Yeah.
And that was open to everyone, so it wasn't open to just UKIP members. So people who just don't like Jared Batten and don't like UKIP were obviously voting no on that. So that's where I'd say a large portion of the no votes on his little poll came
probably,
from.
Yeah.
Just going, you're a bad man and I don't like you.
They could put any name on there and they say, no, that person should run for leadership for UKIP, because UKIP shouldn't have any leaders because they should just go and die. But, no, I've run outside and back.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was distraught and I got over it, and I'll see where the party's going to go. But... I was concerned about...
I was apprehensive that the direction could be compromised.
Yes.
That,
they were very vague on their reasoning.
I was like, I really hope they haven't compromised to keep face, because the media are on their cases.
I was worried...
Advertising's got you on the run.
Nice use of a lyric. Very good, actually. I like that.
That's exactly what it's about. I mean, I'm pretty sure that that System of a Down track was wrote while people were actually in the band working at a pizza place or whatever, and that the idea of advertising's got you on the run. It's like there's forces that are working in the background. They're operating almost like whips. They're forcing people to work harder and harder and harder, and it's got businesses and people and individuals on the run. They're having to
Yeah, I get you.
But
so they're very vague on the initial announcement of the reason why, and so the two things out of that, I was the obvious thing was because Farage has been there to support Tommy because he's thought, do you know what, fuck it, I think he's right, so I'm going to publicly stand and say I think what he's doing is right, regardless on what everyone's going to say about him. He just, he wasn't dishonest about his feelings, and that's what I respect, and I've made clear so far. And I was thinking, is this also because of the YouTubers, mainly Sargon, because bad smells follow him, because people like to throw shit at him, and that's not his fault. I don't necessarily think. Sometimes he attracts
born to be
shit.
king, and
but yet
he hasn't got shit all over
at the recent event they gave him a platform.
In the market for shit on him, so.
So it's good to see him give him a platform, because if they're not taking that platform away from him, he's obviously not the main problem. There was, I can't remember the name of the chap, I probably should have looked it up, but the guy before him spent his time speaking just to sort of shit on Carl Benjamin without saying the name Carl Benjamin, but he made it very, very clear that that's what it was. You can go and find this on the UKIP channel. You'll find what Carl Benjamin's speech was, and you'll see the one just before it. Watch that one first, then watch it, because Carl did the right thing. It wasn't a retaliation. He didn't drop what he wanted and had to talk about to retaliate things that were being sent about, and basically him being the scapegoat and being one of the people who get blamed for a recent failure. He talked about the future and what we can do right and what we should do right and what we should be focusing on.
Sargon brought him in a whole bunch of members.
Yeah.
And those whole bunch of members, a lot of them have left after they betrayed
He's part
Batten.
of what financially saved the
country. To their doorstep saying, hey, these guys, they might know what's going on. They seem to talk a lot of sense.
All gave the party £30.
Honest. Yeah, and we all gave the party £30.
It was part of what financially saved the party from going to ruin and being in the red.
Already the media's got them seemingly compromising their position. And even if it isn't the high-ups and it isn't everybody in the party, there is people who have sway that have decided to play the media pantomime.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing that's the obvious thing is
here.
The email in this announcement, the biggest part of it was the announcement saying we didn't like the way that Gerard Batten was taking us in a far right direction.
Which is
why
nonsense.
are we using the media's rhetoric when we know that's not true and we know that that's a false label that's being thrown around like rice at a wedding?
Yeah.
You know, why are we playing their game?
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to...
and playing by their rules when we know it's a shit game with shit rules. It's not fun. We should take our pieces and go and play our game because, heck, it's a lot better. That's what we're here for.
In the hustlings, I've seen. I mean, I can't remember the name of the chap. It might be. He might be from Bolton. It's not his name is Bolton, but he's a northern guy. Talks in a very northern voice, very authoritative. Knows his stuff. Been to the pub, but yeah, he's seem to be making a lot of appeals to the sort of identity politics that people are trying to call out. It's like making a lot of working class. We are the party of the working class, and I don't think there's people who are on social benefits that don't want to work. And it seemed, I don't know, the direction that they're taking now is far worse than the direction they were taking before. In fact, the direction they're taking now is I don't know. It seems like they're trying to reinvent themselves as the Conservative Party that was this time 15 years ago or something, which wouldn't work now because we're in a completely different time and we need to innovate. We need to go forwards, not backwards, and that's what they were doing before. I think UKIP were offering a area of innovation in a particularly stale political landscape. And now it seems like they're just trying to, they've been one of us. It's a worry. We'll see where it goes. You know, maybe if enough people kick off, and maybe it's a bit of 4D chess. If we decide we've taken this direction, you lot will take control of the reins and steer the ship in the right direction.
Otherwise, it's going to split the party.
Well, possibly, and that's the only way I can see it. Because if it's like one side of the party,
plenty of people are saying if Gerard left,
free speech, free expression, so long as they're not doing any real damage, and we don't want words to be called violence, and we want people to be able to express their ideas. And the others saying we need to police our own speech, we need to police our ideas. We don't want to have anything to do with these people have these ideas.
Maybe a split's for the best.
Maybe.
I mean, heck, you can form a party out of thin air and win most of an election in 6 weeks, apparently. So
if there's not a gap in the market in the UK for a centrist party, there is at least a gap in the market for an individualist party.
What I was going to go on to next. So we talked about rebranding earlier, because eventually the UK will be independent. So why do we need an independence party when we're already independent? So why not rebrand to the UK Individualist Party?
I mean, it sounds worse than the Nazis, but like the Skeptical Individualist Party would be at least an appropriate piece of naming convention.
Just I think, the Individualist Party, to be honest. Yeah. That's all it needs to be.
Well, yeah, maybe.
But you're right. Because if it's split UKIP, fine. It's all the members who have just forked out a load of money, leaving and taking our toys. You know, we'll take our footballs and we'll go and play a new game. You know,
there's definitely
I'd be up for it.
A political mindset that can be derived from the idea of individualism, and I've heard people say in comments and whatnot, and in discussions, like you can't have an individualist movement.
You can't have an
individualist.
You can't have a group of individualists.
And I think you totally can.
Yeah.
I think you totally can, and I think if the idea is that you're aware that you're all different and you all offer something different, and it's different tools for different jobs at that point. It's like I said, the whole benefit of diversity isn't physical, it's mental. And if it is physical, it's not about like colour or texture or where you're from or what clothes you wear, and it's about what you can do. And it's like I said, like if you've got a whole tool kit, then you can do load more jobs than if you've just got a whole bunch of screwdrivers or a whole bunch of chisels or
a bunch of
whatever.
Hammers aren't going to achieve anything.
With a whole bunch of screwdrivers, you might be able to do a lot of really good screwing. But from there, that's it. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with a whole nation of screwdrivers. If you want a whole nation of screwdrivers, whatever. But this analogy's tailing off a bit. Probably losing a little bit of the momentum. You
have to be a pretty small thinker to try and proclaim that you can't have a group of individuals. But I've seen so many people make that point. And it's just like, it's not a good point.
It shows how people see other people.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if you've got one word attached to you, that must mean that you're that one word. But not that one word could mean lots of different things in lots of different contexts. And even with the whole intersectionality thing, it's it can mean more than one thing. It can mean about 8 things, because there's only 8 different dimensions of analysis. But yeah, no, obviously there's infinite. So individuality, Brian got it right. Brianism, political Brianism.
I think we'll leave it there. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, we'll save the last one for next time.
Yeah.
We managed to talk a whole bunch about less things than usual. Good value for money.
Means there's more to look forward to, at least.